Why are fruit prices still so high, bro?
Inflation has steadily
CNBC
cooled
has
over
the
the
answers
past
for us
2
today.
years, despite seeing a slight stall in October and November of 2024. Prices
How's
for
that snack
items
on
like
some stuff?
gasoline, used cars, and energy have declined accordingly. But food prices continue to outpace inflation, increasing by 28% since 2019.
I just spent
You can't keep up.
$33 on dinner tonight. I'm literally just making like lasagna soup.
What are you talking about? Was $8.25 now $6.89?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Like this is some amazing deal.
For 4 chicken breasts, $10 to $11.
Jeez.
86% of consumers reported feeling frustrated with rising grocery prices, and over a third said they have resorted to buying fewer items to save money.
That's
That's
the economy,
one of the
though.
real gauges people have of their cost of living because it's an important aspect of their cost of living. And it's something that we have a lot of exposure to. We go to the grocery store, we pick up the different products, we look at the prices.
So why are grocery prices still so high? And what can be done to bring the costs down?
It's hard to bring the price down. It's hard to.
Like any other business, food processors, manufacturers, and retailers face various operating costs to get food from the farm to the grocery aisle. These costs play a key role in how products are priced. Just 15.9 cents for every dollar spent on food goes to the farm that actually produced it.
There's so much more that goes into the cost of our food than just the actual food itself. There's a
And I
lot
don't
that goes
disagree
into
with
the
it.
producing it, moving it around, the transportation, the marketing, getting it on the shelves. It's not just the
Pop and
food.
drop.
It's all of the inputs that go into it.
Unexpected global events set the stage for a sudden rise in food costs.
It was a global pandemic. There were disruptions all around the world in terms of production. At the same time that you just have this unexpected, unprecedented wave of demand, that is a recipe for it to really break down and you to go into the grocery store and see empty shelves
Yeah.
or go into the grocery store and
was
see
rough that
really
year.
higher prices.
Then in 2022, you had Russia invade Ukraine. That caused huge shocks to agricultural commodity prices, especially wheat. Well, this starts feeding back on itself because what it does is it makes, let's say, animal food more expensive for cows, pigs, chickens, etc.
The surge in inflation added more pressure on food manufacturers and retailers.
All the costs that are incurred after the farm. It's all the processing costs, the energy costs, the wage costs, all these things contributed to much, much higher prices. And these all were rising from about mid-21 onward, and they continue to rise.
Really what you've had experienced since 2021 is sort of this massive, what we call cost pass-through that has occurred. The idea of cost pass-through is just, imagine I'm a manufacturer, I'm producing an item, and let's say it's a case of product, it costs me $10.
I'm glad they broke
I
it
may
down like
turn
this
around and
because
sell that
I had
for,
no
let's say,
idea what.
$18. Let's say my
How to
costs
explain it.
go up 20%. Now all of a sudden that means I'm paying $12 for, this product, or I'm incurring a $12 cost to make it. At minimum, I have to now charge $20.
Yeah.
But likely I'm going to charge a little bit more than $20 because I have to protect what we call my gross margin rate. That goes to the wholesaler. Well, the wholesaler is now seeing a $2.50 increase.
So they have to
They
increase
not
it by
only
that
have
much
to raise their
or
selling
more.
price by $2.50, but they may raise it by $2.75 to the grocery store. The grocery store now sees $2.75 of greater cost. So they may end up charging $3 more overall.
Wow.
Because everybody's trying to protect their margin as we move through the supply chain.
Operating costs for food manufacturers
So for
reached
the-
a peak during the fourth quarter.
Farmers have to do that, right? If they have to protect it, I get it. But if stores are making as much money as they are, do they really need to charge more for everything?
Of 2022,
Do they?
seeing a nearly 19% increase compared to 5 years prior. But while operating costs have come down significantly, most experts remain pessimistic about a sudden deflation in food prices.
Once the price goes up, it tends to stay up.
Yeah,
The
it's hard to come
inflation may come back down, so you don't see the big price increases. But outside of widespread depression. We don't tend to see prices falling across the board.
The last time we saw actual decreases in grocery prices that were substantial was really late 2015, but primarily 2016. It's important to remember that that year saw a very sharp drop in oil prices, and also commodity prices came down further. And so you really have sort of a unique set of circumstances that caused actual deflation in food prices in 2016. None of us are expecting that to occur in 2025.
There's some categories where we've seen prices come up and down. Eggs are a good example. Like, they did come back down quite a bit after the big surge. So it's not to say that there aren't individual prices that will come down, but as a category, most goods and services, once that price goes up, it stays up. Because again, you think of a big input cost in a lot of places are things like wages or building costs, things that would be difficult to then
I think it's just harder
reverse.
to stick
You just
with.
don't keep increasing them at the same pace.
I think it's just harder to stick with what you have because everything keeps increasing. So when everything keeps increasing, the consumer, us, we're like, wait a minute. But we have to understand at the same time, like they have to worry about their wages, like they said. They have to worry about their cost for buying product. So all of it makes sense. But again, I was going to say it, but they already have. Price gouging, definitely a problem when it comes to
In
this.
recent years, there's been another popular theory behind the rising cost of groceries: price gouging.
The question is, have groceries gotten more expensive
Yes.
just because of inflation, that is, passing along higher prices,
Maybe.
or is there more going on here?
More than
We
going
all
on
need
here.
food to survive. No matter what the price is, what that has meant over the last couple of years is that retailers have been able to take advantage of this.
Yes.
63%
Yes,
of Americans surveyed in 2024 blamed price increases on large corporations taking advantage of inflation.
Yeah.
Corporate profits accounted for well over 40% of inflation between the end of 2019 and mid-2022. In comparison, corporate profit drove just 11% of price growth over the 40 years prior to the pandemic. A report from Groundwork Collaborative also revealed that some of the largest food corporations have openly discussed their ability to keep prices high, even as inflation cools down.
The other thing to remember in all of this that we've talked about many times is our grocery products pricing is very sticky. And so the pricing that we've taken and that we're in the midst of executing the additional price increase, that pricing will by and large sustain.
Our actions around pricing and
I don't know about
productivity
that.
have
I don't
stickiness
know.
to them. While they address margin gaps in the near term, they will drive margin enhancement when inflation stabilizes.
The grocery sector as a whole is deeply concentrated. They have very little competition. And so this is what some economists call tacit collusion, where, big companies sort of side-eye each other and listen to each other's earnings calls and think, hey, they're not lowering their prices, so we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do it
and
either.
that sort of facilitates this really sticky, high-price situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
A 2023 report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture revealed a significant increase in market concentration within the food sector over the past 40 years. Between 2018 and 2020, just two seed companies controlled 72% of corn acres and 66% of soybean acres. And most metropolitan areas saw just 5 to 6 store chains accounting for most of the supermarket sales.
Only 5 to 6?
But some economists remain
wow.
skeptical about whether real price gouging is
Does that include like the small shops, or is it just like Kroger, Walmart, Target, Costco, Sam's Club, like those store chains?
happening within the food sector.
We've not seen any evidence
thing.
from the Service Annual Survey of unduly large gross margin rates, not only in grocery, but also what we call warehouse clubs and superstores. That's your Walmarts, your Targets, your Costcos.
Gross margin rate for some of the biggest US-centric grocery retailers have not seen enough gains to show price gouging. The same goes for food manufacturers that are more global in scale.
We have regulatory agencies to watch over this stuff for a reason, but I think there's plenty to explain what's gone on in the food price grocery store inflation based on underlying fundamentals in the market. You don't have to resort to arguments that, oh, this is price gouging on the part of these companies.
I mean, But if we see a higher price for
To
something that
account for
shouldn't be
high
that high,
costs,
then
more
we're
families
still
are
gonna see
dipping
it
into their
anyway.
savings or relying on their credit cards, buy now, pay later programs, or even payday loans to pay for their groceries.
Yep.
60.5% of adults reported paying for groceries with a credit card in 2023.
You have to, right?
But just about a
There's no
third
way you
said
can
they
pay with
paid the
cash.
charge in full, while 7.1% said they haven't even made their minimum payments.
Jesus.
It means that people are going to desperate lengths to buy something that is just essential.
In 2023, US consumers spent an average of 11.2% of their disposable income on food.
Wow, that's
with
a
an
lot.
average family spending about $3,187 for food at home per year.
Oh, per
I
year.
can
I was
sit
gonna say
here
per
and say
month is
that
insane.
food expenditures are small relative to the income that most households make, but for poorer families, that's not the case. It is high.
In 2023, low-income households spent an average of 32.6% of their after-tax income on food, compared to just 8.1% for households earning the highest income.
If you're a low-income family, you have to spend on the essentials, right? There may not be much left after that. So as a result, what that means is that when prices for essentials rise, when prices for groceries rise, that really hits low-income folks the hardest.
During the pandemic, there were some extra programs that were put in place to really help people kind of beef up those benefits during the pandemic, and those have expired, but they did give an example of how we can strengthen those kind of programs. So if we're really all fired up about how expensive food prices are and we're worried about people being left behind, we do have public policies that we can shore up to help people who really are getting hit hard by those higher prices.
Other policies could help prevent prices from rising too much, or help Americans better cope with higher prices.
Improving access to guest worker visas and making that program more efficient so that farmers can get more labor in order to make sure products can be supplied smoothly. Making sure that we have good, smooth transit of imported goods from Mexico, avocados that everybody loves as an example, into the United States and have border crossings flowing smoothly.
Wages keeping up is really important, and we should definitely put in more reforms and structure to make sure that wages do continue to rise,
No, it's still
encourage
difficult, though, I
unionization,
think.
encourage other forms of collective
It's not as
bargaining.
simple as
And at the
that.
same time, we do need to address the underlying issue of profiteering in the retail industry. Your dollar only goes so far if someone at the top is making everything you buy more expensive.
In August 2024, the FTC and the Justice Department held a first public meeting on illegal price gouging in several industries, including food and agriculture. While over 40 states ban price gouging, there's no federal law preventing corporations from gouging prices.
And then, next year we have a big
What
tax
the
fight
heck?
coming up, and raising the corporate tax rate, as unlikely as it might seem in this political environment, would actually be a real deterrent to these big companies to price gouge their consumers, because price gouging is a lot less fun if you have to ship a bunch of your earnings over to the IRS. And so there are policy tools that we can use to address this issue. And I think
But-
it's really critical that we start to look really expansively at the things that we can do to make food prices more affordable for everyday consumers.
But some experts question how far policies can really go to affect food prices.
There's no silver bullet in terms of bringing down food costs.
We've went through a brutal inflationary cycle for food. There's really nothing government policymakers could really do about this. This is not something unique to
I don't
the
think they
United
try hard
States.
enough, then.
This has been felt around the world.
I don't think
And
they
right
try
now we
hard
just
enough.
have to wait and see how things will play out as we move forward.
The uncertainties introduced by the current political climate also make it challenging to predict the future of grocery prices.
There's no doubt that tariffs will massively make things more expensive, especially food. There's a lot of food that we all like to eat that we don't grow in the United States.
Mhm.
So any food that we import gets a lot more expensive when you add a tax on that. Same
Oh.
thing with mass deportations. I mean, we have
That's a shame.
workers in this country who really prop up our food system, who make sure that the things that we want on our tables get grown, get packaged, get driven across the country. And when you start to really harm that workforce and send them away, that harms our entire economy. So I think there's absolutely no doubt that things will get more expensive under some of the policies that we're seeing the Trump administration propose.
So, do you think that if farmers were paid more, do you think the cost of certain things would come down? Two, if you think something's expensive, Nine times out of 10, it is easier to buy something in bulk, but make sure you finish it sooner rather than later, because then it will go bad. But do the math, right? If like you see a 24 pack of something that costs $16, but you see a 12 pack that costs $12, do the math and you'll see which one comes out more expensive and which one doesn't. Like let's say a 2 pack of what's a good thing? Detergent, right? Let's say it costs you $26, but a single pack will cost you what, $14-15? Like do the math and figure out what do you think is actually cheaper in that aspect. It will be the 2 pack of the detergent rather than the single pack, because you're getting more out of 2 than you are out of 1, price and ounce wise. So sometimes we have to do our due diligence and figure it out, but if it doesn't go down, it will keep going higher, and basically we're going to be paying $30 for a 12 pack of eggs at some point. So at this point, I don't think there is anything we can do. We just gotta push through it, I guess.